Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored to be here with my good friend, Marianne Passi, CEO of CHPA, Corporate Housing Professionals Association. Marianne, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic. Hi, Ben.
It is so good to have you here. I'm so excited.
Your energy.
I got energy. I'm pumped. I'm excited. You are throwing what promises to be one of the most exciting conferences this year of 2023. It's the best way to start the year off, and it's coming up, the CHPA conference in New Orleans. We're going to be talking about New Orleans. It's during Mardi Gras, which is like mind-blowing because the CHPA conference is always amazing. And now you mix in Mardi Gras, and it's like, I don't even know what to do with myself right now.
It's going to be a great time.
Yeah. Who's going to sponsor the IV truck outside? That's what there's a lot of sponsorships that are available right now, people.
But that's a new one. We can add that. Love and Relo.
We'll get into it.
Love and Relo is going to sponsor that.
Love and Relo IV tent.
Right.
Get in the comments right now. I want to know who you are, where you are. Let us know what company you're coming to us from. Let us know, have you been to a CHPA conference before? Let me know. Is this going to be your first one this year? What are you looking forward to? I want to know, what is your CHPA story? We got people checking in right now. Hit that like button right now if you're excited as well. Look at this, Christopher Benson. I missed the show, Ben. Happy New Year to you, Christopher. Christopher, you still out in Arkansas, man? Let me know what's going on. Get in the comments. Hit that like button as well. We're going to talk about CHPA for people that don't know what CHPA is and what y'all do. We're going to talk about all the great advocacy that y'all do within the corporate housing industry. We're going to talk about the amazing conference that comes up, how people can get involved. We're going to have some fun today. We're going to play some games. I think you've got some questions for me too.
I do.
Marianne.
And you know what? I just saw Gabriel Wacker checking in from Kansas City. Gabriel is one of our conference co-chairs for this upcoming event next month. So he and Robin Spindell with Synergy, they've both been instrumental in creating, bringing Mardi Gras inside the conference a little bit so that people can get a taste of the vibe of the city, shortening the event a little bit each day so people can get out and actually experience Mardi Gras. We've got 450 people from 165 plus companies coming, 7 countries.
Wow.
They're planning to get together in just 43 days. So thank you to my team for putting the countdown calendar on the website, which stresses me out every day because there's only 43 more days to get everything done.
Right. We're like getting excited because, hey, it's right around the corner. You're like, oh my gosh, I have one less day now to get this thing pulled off.
Exactly. But we've got a lot of talented individuals that are speaking and planning this event. The CHPA team is behind the scenes making it all happen. Dozens of exhibiting companies showing you the latest and greatest in what's happening in the industry, how they're supporting the industry. We have dozens of golfers that are starting out the day before CHPA's Golf Scramble. So that's happening. And all proceeds support CHPA's legislative fund, which goes toward supporting advocacy for the industry itself.
All right, I want to double click into this because you said okay. A lot of really cool things, and I want to know about all of them. And shout out to Gabriel, and shout out to all the people who are getting in the comments. Keep getting in the comments. I want to know, what are you most looking forward to about CHPA? And Gabriel, I want to know from a conference kind of co-chair standpoint, what are you doing that you think makes this one special? But Marianne, you brought up the golf tournament, and that kind of kicks off the CHPA conference. What is that tournament like? I haven't played yet, and I might have to pop in and
okay. It's a golf scramble. The prizes are bragging rights for the next year, for the most part. But we've got a lot of companies that are sponsoring holes, sponsoring a putting contest, sponsoring beverage cart. It's close by to the conference hotel. It's not too far. We've got some people have said, hey, I'm concerned about being able to get to Mardi Gras, and do I rent a car, and what should I do? We've got transportation all taken care of for you.
Nice.
So it'll get you in and out from the hotel to the golf course. English Turn Golf Club is the name of it. And it's a beautiful course. Cited that in September when we were there for CHPA's leadership meeting. It's really a great time. It's a way to network before the conference kicks off officially with educational sessions and exhibit hall, just some social fun to get together for a really great cause. So there's a lot of confusion.
Is there a sponsorship still available? Can people still register for the golf tournament? And
Yes,
are there
can.
sponsorships still available?
Yes to all of that.
Okay. All right. And if they want to sponsor the golf tournament,
yes,
how can they do that?
You can click on the links that are put into the comment or the chat. I think it's comments box, or you can just go to chpaonline.org and click on events and go to, and right underneath there, exhibitors and sponsors will pop up, and you can click right there. If you're already registered, you can go into your record and just say you want to add golf. You can even rent clubs there.
So you can add it. So you can add it, and you can rent clubs. So you don't have to travel with. And also, super producer Adam, if you could throw that link into the LinkedIn broadcast as well. Hit that like button, everybody. Let me know if you're out there. Oh my goodness, we got people checking in here. Well, look at this. Look at this. We got Gabriel checking in. We got Deluxe Suites checking in here. Fantastic. This is great.
Yeah.
I love my Deluxe people. Jana Shazanowski, happy Tuesday. Excited for my first CHPA and Mardi Gras experience. That's another thing. We have to talk about this. What are you guys thinking? Mardi Gras. Oh my gosh. How are we even going to compute this? My brain's going to melt.
You know what? We've been to Mardi Gras. We've been in New Orleans during Mardi Gras before. And we actually did a private second line parade to an event space. So we're trying to bring a little bit of Mardi Gras into the conference hotel, so you're not going to be missing too much out there. But we've got links in our attendee newsletters and on site, or online rather, to the parade routes and what's going on in the city, some recommendations on local restaurants and other bars and even houses of worship, because that's also falling in, that's the beginning of Lent for those that are of the Christian faith. So you can also be sure to cover your bases all around. So it's a great time. We met in New Orleans Mardi Gras before. It's been a few years, but it was a lot of fun. And so we're doing it again.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And you mentioned a second line, and we got people checking. Look, Dave Capel says Marianne is my hero. I mean, look at that. I mean, I think you're my hero, Marianne. I mean, pulling off a party at Mardi Gras with 500 of our closest friends. I mean, from 7 countries, 165 companies represented. I mean, this is going to be epic.
I mean, what more can you ask for? Mardi Gras with 500 of your closest friends?
And some business development opportunities. I mean, so you get vacation and you get, business development partnerships. I mean, people we've known forever. This is great. We got Scott Chapman checking in as well. Good afternoon, Marianne and Ben. Scott's going to be on the show soon, I hope. This is great. Look at Adam, put the link in there for attendee registrants. That's awesome.
Ben, can I just jump in for a second? Because you brought up a really good point. So we talk about it being at Mardi Gras, and we talk about CHPA being a great place to network and the social aspects of it. But what's really important is, you mentioned it, people are there to do business, right? So the camaraderie that CHPA has had as an industry always is something that's unique to the Corporate Housing Providers Association, that they're partners, they're competitors, yet they're sharing information and resources and lessons learned. And they use this event, which is the largest event of industry professionals getting together in one space, to really do business. And so it's strengthening current relationships and building new ones. And we've got a lot of new member companies that are attending as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so my first CHPA conference was last year in Tampa, and I was blown away. I mean, I'd heard about CHPA for many years from all my friends in corporate housing. And last year I finally went to one in Tampa, and I was really blown away by the vibe and by the collaborative atmosphere. Mm-hmm. There aren't many conferences you go to where everybody can partner together in some way.
Right.
And I think that creates an atmosphere where everybody's just swapping business cards, figuring out how they can collaborate, how they can partner, because, everybody can't have units in every city that they own and operate, right? So they're constantly always trading inventory. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And then, of course, there's all the people that support from a technology standpoint or furniture rental or whatever, right? And so I just love that collaborative nature. And I think it's one of the things that makes it so unique and so familial in a way.
It is very true. And people that are in the industry that may go between companies, even go between sectors of the industry, they tend to stay in the industry once they find it. Just like associations, no one necessarily goes to school to work or run an association. Same thing with corporate housing, but it's in the hospitality space. It's a service and a product. And that's what we get together to talk about and how to make that the best option to stay in and to put clients in and guests in.
I love it. I love it. It's a service and a product. That's really cool. I never thought of it that way. Like, we got people checking in. Lynn Ripley. What's up, Lynn? Love Lynn. She says, hi, Ben and Marianne. Lynn with MCHA. Love CHPA. And excited to see all our partners and friends in New Orleans. Lynn, what's your favorite place to go in New Orleans? If you've been to New Orleans, those of you out there who have been, because I know, we have good friends on the show here, Jana, who hasn't been. A lot of people have not been to New Orleans, has not been to Mardi Gras. If you have been to New Orleans, it is a city unlike any other. It's probably in my opinion, the most unique city in the United States. It doesn't even feel like the U.S. sometimes. It feels like you're in another country, another time sometimes. Put in the comments, I want to know, what is your favorite thing to do in New Orleans, favorite place to go? What is a can't miss thing you have to see in New Orleans? That is an audience question. Please put it in there. I want to ask everybody that. Marianne, I'm going to ask you. You said you hosted a CHPA event in New Orleans before.
We did.
What is your favorite thing to do in New Orleans?
I've got two things. One thing I really love to do, you mentioned that it looks like a different city, or it's not necessarily a U.S.-based city. So love walking around like in the morning. It's just, you get that European vibe walking down the streets.
Yeah, the cobblestones and the verandas and stuff.
Absolutely. So there's that. And then a place I really like to go to has the best pineapple margaritas I've ever had is pineapple cilantro margaritas, El Gato Negro, which is right across from the market. So not too far from Cafe Du Monde. So it's right there. So that's great.
Yes.
It's a great place.
El Gato Negro. I've never heard of this. So cilantro pineapple margaritas sound amazing. I'm over in the same neighborhood. Everybody talks about Bourbon Street, and that's great. That's great. Definitely do that one night.
Yeah.
The other night, you go to Frenchman Street. You go to Frenchman, and you go hit all the live music venues right next to one after another. Brass bands, blues bands, jazz bands, just boom, 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 and everybody's playing in. Sometimes you see the same drummer here that you saw 3 hours ago over there, and they play in together. And it's just every club has kind of a different vibe, but it's all kind of one kind of threads of the same chord. And so you're kind of going down Frenchman Street and you're working your way down there. And then when you close Frenchman Street, 2, 3 in the morning, you just wander over to Cafe Du Monde, right? 24/7 beignets, fresh fried beignets with the powdered sugar and the chicory coffee. And that just, no matter what happened before, that just like, it's like going to church. All your sins are forgiven, right? You just go in there at Cafe Du Monde, you dig into those beignets, man. You come out looking like Tony Montana, man, but you had a great night. You got a little something in your belly. Yeah. Life is good. You're ready to do it again the next day. I tell you what, that's the best.
Well, you asked too, like, why are we in New Orleans too? Like, can you think of a better place that is like just a huge amalgamation of hospitality? I mean, a hospitality experience, people in the chat are putting in food and they're putting in, where to stay, where to go, someplace to drink, something to experience. I mean, that's what corporate housing is all about. I mean, we're in the hospitality space, delivering hospitality as well as duty of care and all of the other important things that our members are bringing to their clients that differentiate us from, some other accommodation options. So it's really, and it's talking about the professionalism of that and how to increase best practices among each other, as you said, among collaborators and competitors.
I love it. And you're right. It is kind of the epicenter of hospitality. Put in the comments, what is your favorite thing to do in New Orleans? Look at this. Elizabeth says, yes, Frenchman Street. Yes, Elizabeth, 100%. Lynn Ripley, eat. The food is the most amazing. Also, if you have time to do a free walking tour of New Orleans, great history and info. Such a cool city. I agree. The history is so unique there. And I think it's the reason the food is, I know this is about CHPA, but New Orleans is a character in the story here, okay? The reason the food is so unique is because you have this African, this Caribbean, this Native American, this French, Spanish, all these influences, and that's what's Creole, All these influences coming together like a gumbo, right? Like a jambalaya, you know. That's why the music and the zydeco and all that's so different, and that's why the food is so different, and it's just the most unique thing. And I'm kind of a foodie, if you haven't noticed, Marianne, but I can go to New Orleans, and every single time I go there, I can find something I've never had before, and it's just magical.
It's a
What's
great
your
city. Great
favorite
city.
thing to eat? I know you like the pineapple cilantro margaritas. What's your favorite thing to eat, Marianne?
In New Orleans,
Yeah.
I'd probably say jambalaya.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Jambalaya is amazing.
There
Yeah.
was a great restaurant we went to when we were there, leadership meeting a couple months ago, called Nola Caye, Caye, I believe. Food
Yep.
was amazing, and it's a unique blend of Caribbean flavors and things like that. They're not open at night. Just FYI, I tried to make a dinner reservation. They're closing at 4 o'clock because a parade goes right outside their door. But if you can
Oh,
get there for brunch or lunch, it is worth the trip. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
I love it. I love it. We're going to check in with some people, and then we're going to get to understanding a little bit more about what people can expect from the conference and how they can get involved. We got Ray Abbott checking in from Canada. That's awesome. George Meyer checking in. Great to see you too. Good to see you too, George. Look at this. Danny's checking in. Can't wait to experience CHPA. Kyle Blaylock from Nashville, Tennessee. That's a good town as well. Kyle, you going to be there at CHPA this year? I need me some Kyle Blaylock in my life. Jamie Massler, cheers from Overcast, Mississippi. Jamie, you going to be at CHPA? I want to know. Your company should definitely be represented. Look at this. Barbara Hale. Let's do this. Love Barb. Fantastic.
Barb's the incoming CHPA chair for 2023. Hi, Barb Hale.
I did not know we were in the presence of royalty.
You absolutely are.
Barb Hale. All hail, Barb. Let's see here. Christina from Veracruz. We got Mexico in the house. Heather Jameson from Global LT in Michigan. Loving New Orleans. Let me know your favorite thing to do is there, Heather. Marianne, so we talked about golf. What is Monday have in store for us?
Monday, we've got some pre-conference networking that's going to happen, peer-to-peer stuff. Also, small staff forum meetup. So the majority of CHPA members are small staff companies. And so they're doing a lot. They're wearing a lot of hats. Companies of all sizes, but predominantly they're doing it all with a small staff. So they get together to share resources, talk about what they're struggling with, how they can help each other. And that's really become a fantastic resource. We had a small staff forum last year. Had to think what date it is to see if it's this year or last year, in Indianapolis, and almost 100 people got together and just talked about and shared what they're doing, what they're struggling with, how they can continue to improve and grow their businesses. So that's going to happen pre-conference.
I love that. I love that real quick. I want to double click on that real quick. I love the fact that you guys are highlighting the small staffs and that's one of the cool things about corporate housing is it's a lot of really small companies. I mean, there's some big companies, but there's a lot of really small companies. And one thing I noticed is there are a ton of woman-owned small businesses and minority-owned small businesses, more so than any other sector of relocation that I go into, more than moving, more than immigration, there's just a ton of those, mom and pop operators. And I love the fact that corporate housing is so small business driven. And I love the fact that CHPA understands that the needs of a small business are different than the needs of a big business. And there's so much coaching and guidance and peer-to-peer and mentoring, needs to, that you just don't have that same depth in the leadership ranks and in the knowledge banks, in a small business. So I love the fact that you highlighted that. Where did that come from? Where did that idea what was the genesis of that?
It was the genesis of a few member companies that got together, and they were meeting casually. They get together at the conference and they said, we really need to kind of not formalize it, but let's grow it and let's get it out. And they came to CHPA and said, hey, can you help us pull this together? There's a small staff community that's online that shares resources and talks about things, or, if they're not sure about, the best approach or looking for a best practice or looking not to recreate the wheel, right? No one needs to recreate the wheel and do more work than they're already doing, especially a company with a small staff. So they'll reach out to each other to share resources. And so that's our goal as an association as well. Every association, we really survive and serve at the behest of our members. And so really looking to see what they need, asking what they need, and then supporting them around those needs. And this was one of the things that came up. And so the first meeting I think we had at CHPA might have been 3 or 4 years ago, and there were 100 plus people in the room just saying, I'm a small staff, I'm a small staff. And a lot of people don't know. I mean, the association has a small staff. We have less than 4 full-time employees that do everything. So I get where they're coming from and what they're struggling with. So it's great to be able to sit down and just hear them share what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how they're successful. And I think it just makes everybody better.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love it. And we got people checking in here too. We got Aaron Venable checking in. Hit that like button right now. I want to hear what you're excited about for CHPA. We want to take your questions as well. If you've got questions for Mary Ann Passi, CEO of CHPA, let me know. If you've got questions for me, if you're looking forward to going to New Orleans or CHPA, or maybe you want to be on Love and Reload, because we're going to be broadcasting live from CHPA, which is something we also haven't even talked about yet, but that's going to be exciting. Rob Zeitz from Air Inc. in Cambridge, Mass. Wicked smart. Very cool.
Speaking of wicked smart, another thing that's happening, on the Monday before the conference is a data security workshop. So you've got both a risk management professional that's going to talk about that, as well as some corporate housing companies sharing their experiences if they had some risky occurrences happening internally and how they addressed it, and just some safeguards you can put in place to improve your company. And then we kick off the conference. It's a quick opening session, may or may not have some live jazz music, jazz band, and then we're going to head to the exhibit hall and kick it off. So it's going to be a great night. We end, after a few hours in the exhibit hall. We've expanded hours in the exhibit hall, so you get to see everything that's new and exciting, and all the companies that are there, but also ending a little bit early so you can go out and experience Mardi Gras. If you choose.
If you choose.
That's right.
Yeah, no. I think that's going to be great. And when is the keynote?
We have a general session every day. So that's Mondays. Tuesday morning is Alicia Anderson from the Alicia Anderson Company. And she is going to talk about disabling ableism. And so she comes from the multifamily housing world. And she just gives you a different perspective on what to think about. What to think about for the properties you're working with, what to think about with the partners that you're establishing relationships with, and also for the people that work for you. So she shares her experience. She just amazing individual, like just a bright light. So I heard her talk and heard her speak at NAA, and she is just effervescent. That's not even a word I think I've ever used to describe
effervescent.
She is. I mean, it's high energy, so positive, and just delightful. So she's going to kick us off, and that's to set the tone for the rest of the day, rest of the conference, really. She gets us started, then we do some breakouts. We've got an RMC panel. The general session the next day really is building on the collaborations we have with other associations. And so we've got some association execs and leaders that are going to be all in one room talking about what you may have missed or what you also can expect if you haven't been to their conferences in late 2022, or if you're planning to go to it sometime in 2023. Just talk about the trends we're all seeing in our industries and how we can collaborate better and all work together.
I want to talk, you mentioned a few things, and I want to talk about the ableism thing. I want to talk about the RMC panel, and I want to talk about what you're doing with other associations collaboratively, because I think it's showing a lot of leadership, and I think we can all learn from that kind of, working across the aisle, if you will, or whatever you want to call it. But going back to the ableism thing, I mean, I stayed in a corporate accommodation not too long ago, and it was a 3rd-story walk-up with no elevator access. Yeah. Now, I'm reasonably able-bodied. I don't get around like I used to, but reasonably able-bodied. But I had a monster suitcase, and I mean, it really made me think about how would someone who doesn't have the use of their legs, navigate this, right? Mm-hmm. And there wasn't a conversation that was had going into it, asking, if I had any restrictions. So, I think that's one of those things that we take for granted sometimes. I remember one time I tore my Achilles, and I was not able-bodied for 3 months. And we take for granted how hard this world is. I mean, we've made strides, like just decades of advancements, but how
there's a long way to go.
Long way to go.
Yeah. It makes you appreciate that, right? Your ableism. I shouldn't say your ableism, your ability to move and your mobility. And so that's what's very powerful and poignant about her messaging too, is just giving you a different perspective to think about things in a different way. And that's really what we're trying to do with the entire conference, is just giving you some of those aha moments. Right.
Well, and I love the responsibility that you're taking for that too, because, and by including that and putting it at the forefront, because if we're going to have inclusive workplaces, then our corporate housing and all of our benefits that surround it also have to continue that inclusivity. Right. So I love the leadership you're taking there. And that leadership actually is a really good segue into the sustainability actions that CHPA is a part of. So can you talk to us a little bit about what you're doing with your sustainability initiatives?
Sure. So CHPA is one of the 6 founding associations of the Global Mobility Sustainability Coalition. That's a lot to say. There's not an acronym. So anyway.
Whoa, there's not an acronym. This thing hadn't even taken off yet. There's not an acronym.
There's not an acronym. Anyway, so the other associations are Worldwide ERC, CERC, Canadian Employee Relocation Council, URA, IAM, and FEDE. So we were each individually doing things within our associations because our members were saying, hey, what are you hearing about sustainability? What is sustainability? Do you have any data on from the industry perspective? What are other companies in our space doing? So as we were talking about what this may look like and what does it actually look like along the mobility continuum, we each have pieces of it, but how do we talk together, use the same language, and figure out where we all go together? Let's not all try to do things in a silo, but instead try to do it together. So it's just, I was likening it a little bit to corporate housing. A lot of names: corporate housing, temp living, temporary housing, executive suites, corporate suites. Some refer to as extended stay. But we're talking about the same thing, and each of us were talking about the same thing in our associations, and our members were asking to be resourced around sustainability. If they're looking to validate, I'll use the word validate in quotes, their supply chain or their supply partners around sustainability, how do they do that? Where do they start? If clients are asking about what are their own company sustainability efforts, what do we have for them? How do they start? What are the definitions? Where do they start? So we are working together and specifically focusing at this point on environmental sustainability. But this work began mid-year last year. We had a great meeting in Las Vegas, several meetings, but a great meeting in Las Vegas, a full one-day workshop facilitated by Deloitte that has created kind of a roadmap or a plan, if you will, for us to work together. And so, our goal is really to promote best practices and improve sustainable outcomes across the industry. I'm just making sure I'm reading all my notes so I don't miss something. Facilitating the learning and the collaboration and improving sustainability efforts through global mobility and figuring out together what might be a common measurement tool that we can all use so that anyone looking and comparing across the industries, they can figure out that we're all talking about the same thing. So that's really our goal. And so we continue to meet. We meet every week. Actually, the heads of the 6 associations talking about this. And then you'll hear more about it at the CHPA conference and at URA and at FEDE and at all the conferences this year.
Yeah, I am. I love this for so many reasons, right? And the fact that you're all meeting and especially at the senior level to have these conversations, not like kind of a junior staff kind of, thing. It's not relegated over. It's like senior level meeting consistently about it. And then pushing that messaging through all the conferences. So we're getting hit with this messaging 4 times a year or something, right? And then I also love the fact that you're standardizing the way it's being measured. So, because the worst thing as a supplier is like one client wants us to do this, one client has a process over here, and then if we have 20 processes, we have no process, right? And so I love the fact that we're all getting on the same page about how are we measuring this. What are the standards? What are we talking about? Literally, what words are we using? I think all of these are great, and I love the fact that we're all coming across. Because some people might say, "Oh, what does corporate housing have to do with IAM, International Association of Movers, and what does that have to do with the Canadian Employee Relocation?" But the fact of the matter is, we're all part of one big ecosystem, which is helping, which is global mobility and helping professionals move around the world, right? And so, I just think it's absolutely brilliant, and I love it also because now this is actually a really good segue into, bringing customers in the room, right? And you mentioned having an RMC panel, a relocation management company panel. I am a huge fan of this. And I think for anybody that's thinking about attending the CHPA conference who hasn't done it already, understanding that there are customers, institutional customers, who buy your services in bulk globally at scale, I think this is a can't miss opportunity to get in front of those folks. Tell me a little bit about the relocation management company panel that you're doing.
Well, we've had clients over the years ask us, we want to get there. We want to talk about it. And we want to talk in one place with all of our partners. We want to understand the industry more. What are the trends? What are the challenges you're facing? I remember doing another collaborative event at Worldwide ERC maybe a year and a half ago. And I think it was Jack Jempel that mentioned, hey, listen, I'm not getting the information that this is a challenge you're facing. So I keep thinking you can accommodate unless you go ahead and tell me and share candidly what these challenges are. And being in a service industry, I mean, it's hospitality, but it's also, as I mentioned, a product into service. No one wants to say they can't do things. And the pandemic, I think, just exacerbated and accelerated some of the challenges that industries are facing. So the RMC panel is really an opportunity to have a back and forth dialogue, candid conversation about what are RMCs seeing, what are clients demanding and asking for, what's changed, what's new, what can they change. What can they change? What can't they change? Same thing from the corporate housing side. Talking about what are the new trends coming up? How can we help solve these problems? But what are the real hard stops that the industry may have that we're needing to navigate? We need to navigate together. So, part of the collaboration, we're talking about the coalition, some of the conversations just started talking about how do we better communicate association to association that are seen as objective entities, if you will, so that competitors and clients and suppliers can all talk together and we can enhance their business relationships. So that's really what we're trying to do. And this RMC panel is just one way that we're doing that at this upcoming conference. You know what?
This is one of those nice things that kind of came out of COVID. Right, is that when we were hit with the supply chain issues that affected corporate housing, affected moving, affected our ability to move immigration, we all of a sudden realized how important it was to communicate frequently and that the information had to flow both ways, right? It couldn't just be clients telling us what they expect of us. They also have to listen to and say, wait, what do you mean you don't have units? Wait, what do you mean you don't have furniture? What do you mean everything's stuck out in the port of LA? And, it wasn't just like, oh, they just kind of assume that the inventory is going to be there and the capability is going to be there. And I think it really reframed the relationship a little bit and said, no, this is a two-way partnership here. We need to talk about it. We need a plan in advance. Don't call me in June 1st and say, hey, I need all these units, right? We need to plan ahead. So I love that. And I love the fact that now our clients are coming to the table and asking us instead of telling us, how we can help them. And I just really applaud CHPA for making the space to have those conversations. And really, again, if I'm talking to everybody out there who's maybe on the fence about going to CHPA, like you have to go because it's such a great opportunity to hear what they're thinking and what they're looking for, and then go right up to them right afterwards and say, hey, Bob, I heard you were worried about this thing. I've got a solution for that. Oh, really? Send me a Zoom invite and let's talk about it. I mean, so many of those conversations are going to be happening, and if you're not there, you're going to miss it.
That's true. And, you mentioned all the stuff during the pandemic. But the creativity and the innovations that the industry was able to come up with as a result of this communication, this continued communication and collaboration. So that's a lot of what happens. And that's a lot at the conference. That's a lot of the energy of both the association and the event itself. Yeah.
Hit that like button right now. Let's give Marianne and her team a virtual round of applause. Hit that green, applause button. Give her a round of applause for putting this conference on because it's going to be amazing. Also, get in the comments. I want to know what questions you have for Marianne because we're going to take your questions. And I heard rumors out there that there was a coalition of people who were conspiring to throw some real hardball questions at you, Marianne. So we got her where we want her, people. So if you want to tee up some hardballs I'm just kidding. Everybody loves you, Marianne. Nobody's going to do that. We got people here tuning in. Kelly says, great conversation. Super excited about the conference. Yes, Kelly. Look at this. Matt was. Thank you both. Pumped about NOLA. A shout out to Matt, because when we got the opportunity to broadcast live from CHPA this year, and shout out to Marianne and your team for bringing us into to do this. Matt was the first one to sign up.
Yep.
Matt was like, I'm batting lead off. I want to be in the one slot. I'm opening with Ben. We're diving right in. Some people are like, I don't know. I don't want to be first. Matt's like, I'm in. What's up? So shout out to Matt Was from Blue Ground for being there. Appreciate you. Marianne, thank you so much for letting us broadcast at CHPA in New Orleans this year.
Thanks for coming to New Orleans. I mean, it was a hard sell. We really had to convince you to come to Mardi Gras, but I
basically begged her. I said, Marianne, please. I'm low maintenance, please.
We'll broadcast from a closet. I think he said something like that, but we said, no, we'll give you real space.
I'll tie a mic to a broom and don't worry about a stand.
It'll be fine. No, but there's space on the expo floor to be interviewed by the Glomo team, by Ben. I'm just laughing at Matt's comment. If you're not first, you're last. So, but if you'd like to be part of that interview, and he's going to be grabbing people from the show floor. So even if you don't sign up, that doesn't mean he's not going to track you down. So you might as well go ahead and sign up and have it work into your schedule.
That's right. And if you haven't sponsored or exhibited, Marianne, I think there's like maybe 3 spots left to exhibit.
Yeah, the exhibit floor is probably going to shut down. Well, I know it is going to close late this week or next Monday. So if you need some space and you want to get in front of the thought leaders in the industry, please reserve your space now. Speaking
of which, Elizabeth President Soley, Elizabeth, you have a great booth, Jacob Street. I hope you're exhibiting. It'd be awesome to see you there. And if you are, please, if you are exhibiting or want to exhibit and want to be interviewed, please DM me. We will get you on the schedule. Really working with Craig over there on the CHPA team. He's been great. Bridget Foley, the CHPA team is the best. I can't wait to see you all in NOLA.
Bridget will be there. Move for Hunger.
Love Move for Hunger. How is Move for Hunger partnering with CHPA? We are big supporters here on the show.
They have an entire corporate housing program that they will, because what they found, obviously, as Move for Hunger, if anyone's not familiar with Move for Hunger, was begun by a family in the moving industry. And so they realized when people move, they leave a lot of food behind. And so they have a whole team of volunteer trucking companies that will take food and deliver it to local food banks. And so the same is true with corporate housing. When people are staying somewhere for months at a time and they're leaving, they have some non-perishable food items that are going to go to waste. And so they've created a whole corporate housing, multifamily housing program that companies can work with Move for Hunger. And just, it's as easy as leaving a paper bag in an apartment with some explanation about how you can help a local community food bank. And they have wonderful volunteers. So we've worked with Move for Hunger for years. They're usually there at our conference. We see each other at other conferences. They support our network connection events. So you can make a donation as you're registering for the conference. You can make a donation to Move for Hunger, or they have a corporate housing company of the year that they present that award at our conference, at our annual awards event.
Ooh.
So that happens.
That's exciting.
And that's on Wednesday. So we talk about Monday, Tuesday, and then we have Wednesday. That's the other associations talking about trends. We also have the CEO session. CEO session that we're going to bring in both an economist as well as a financial analyst and talk about the outlook, not only nationally, but in global markets as well. And then CEOs can speak to CEOs and share some of the challenges that they're facing and how we can all work together as an industry.
Yeah, I love it. And I want to hear, I love when the economists come out and tell us, what's going to happen. They're some of the only people willing to use the crystal ball. Bridget says, if anyone wants to connect CHPA, I have a booth. We are excited to continue our partnership this year. There's a special presentation of our Provider Community of the Year. Look at that. She's got a booth. Elizabeth Soley's got a booth. She can't wait to be there. Awesome. You know who's not going to be there, and I'm sad about this?
Hmm.
Kyle Blaylock lost all his hair last time he was there. And he just can't. He's got nothing left to give. And it makes me sad, although those eyebrows could go. But, Kyle, we're going to miss you there. I'll FaceTime you from Bourbon Street. And if you want to crash on my couch, I think it's a fold out, so you could probably do that too. Tyler saying, love NOLA. I lived in Lafayette for 1.5 years, and it was the best time ever. Tyler, what's up? Tyler's the newest member of the Glomo team. Tyler actually starts with us in February. So,
hi, Tyler. Welcome.
Yeah, Tyler's going to be amazing. He's going to be a rock star in the making. Super cool. And you know what else we haven't even talked about, besides the fact that we are going to be broadcasting live, doing Love and Relo in New Orleans live. I can't get over New Orleans live. I'm also moderating a panel, Marianne.
You are. Why don't you talk about that panel a little bit, Ben?
Well, gosh, I better get my notes. We got a panel. We're talking about talent. Yeah. We're talking about all the challenges with talent, with recruiting, with retaining, with title changes and job functions. I actually read an article yesterday about quiet hiring. We heard about quiet quitting. Well, quiet hiring is where they basically make people in the company do other stuff. They don't actually hire a new person for it. They just make them do other stuff. Yeah. And so it's kind of in that keeping with that thought of, okay, going into this year in 2023, assuming there might be some belt tightening or whatever, we're all going to have to do more with less. That's kind of the idea. And so now they're quiet hiring. So all these trends, and I had the most fascinating call with the team, with Ann Cesare and some other folks yesterday about this panel. And it was really interesting as they talked through the different challenges they had with different types of employees, right? Because in corporate housing, people don't understand this. There might be movers watching this. There's a lot of moving in corporate housing, right? Because you're always delivering new furniture, bringing it back, warehousing, et cetera. There's a lot of housekeeping, right? So there's a lot of these roles that have been really hard to fill for a long time. And then, of course, you have your sales and your marketing and all sorts of customer service roles as well. And so you have a different mix of employees, and they all have their own challenges, right? So we talk about that. We talk about the fact that people's personal lives are becoming more of an issue, right? Whereas before, people always had a personal life, but we didn't bring it to work, Right. But now we have to take consideration of our team's personal lives and actually care and work it into the schedule and be empathetic and stuff, and that's an
I'm sure you always cared about your team's personal lives.
I didn't, not in my 20s. This was a major revelation for me, though. When I was in my 20s and I was a supervisor, I was like, oh, here's the handbook, leave it at the door, But now, now I have little kids and I understand life happens, and I became way more empathetic. And I think we all became way more empathetic, post-COVID, right? So
I think so. And, going back to, it's great that you're talking about this panel. Everyone's is struggling with talent, either retaining, recruiting, or just, getting new positions filled. And so that's very true for, small staff companies. They don't necessarily have an HR department. So how can they keep up with the trends that are happening? And so, it's a really important session. And that was something else that members said, we really need to hear about this. So let's have this as a session at the conference. So,
yeah, we're going to make sure that people leave with practical advice, right? I mean, we're not going to just talk about high level macroeconomic stuff. We're going to talk about here's where I look for people. Here's what I do. Here's how I assess them. Here's how I determine if they're actually going to be good at this job. Here's tips and tricks that I can leave with and actually go deploy in my company. Richard Majewski checking in. Late for the show. Skip dinner to get here. Thanks, Richard. Richard's over in the UK. I don't even know what time it is over there. I hope dinner. What was for dinner, Richard? I hope it was good there. Tyler checking in here. Can't wait to join you in Dallas. Yeah, Richard's coming to Dallas. Tyler's coming to Dallas here. We got a power cord issue over here, Marianne, we're working through here.
Okay, no problem.
You do this amazing conference every year, and it is amazing. But how do you keep people engaged year round when it's not hurricanes and Pat O'Brien's and all that kind of stuff?
So we're really fortunate. We've got a very passionate group of volunteers and members. So there's always a need for volunteer talent, volunteer input. So, the CHPA team, Our job is to help facilitate and run the association, run the events, run the networking, provide members with industry trends, insights, and things like that. But we rely on our members for industry insights and expertise. And so there's always a way to get involved with CHPA. We've got active task forces and work groups, and the program task force and the conference task force as well. They're really the brain power behind the annual conference and getting together. We've got network connections throughout the year, which is local gathering of members in different markets. And
y'all did something in New York City recently, right?
Yes, we're doing it next week, the 18th.
Oh my gosh, yep. I want to do that.
There's one in New York coming up.
I love a good Manhattan party here. We've got questions coming in here about this as well. This is great. Look, I love when people network in the comments here, right? Like Elizabeth and Richard are networking. Richard's got a question for you, Marianne. Okay. Keep these questions coming. Hit that like button. The harder, the better. They all cost the same to ask, so we might as well make them count. Richard says, would like to ask whether Marianne feels accreditation is vital for the future of corporate housing.
Yes. Yes, Richard. That's a short answer. Yes, it is vital. Accreditation and professional certification. CHPA has both an individual professional certification for the CCHP, the Certified Corporate Housing Professional, as well as a company accreditation. But yes, our goal is really the continued professionalism and growth of professionalism in the industry. And that's how we identify and differentiate the industry from other accommodation choices. So they're professionally managed. I mean, this is what we spend a lot of time educating and advocating on behalf of the industry with legislators, for example, explaining the differences, explaining the legalities and the insurance and the adhesion to duty of care that the industry truly supports. And part of that is accreditation. So yes, that is one of the things that both the association has focused on, and also the board has reaffirmed the commitment to accreditation and certification as a differentiator for corporate housing over other things.
I love it. And Matt Waz jumped in. I've actually noticed a large increase in random corporate housing companies or fraud. Accreditation helps so much with that. From a legislation and advocacy standpoint, what is CHPA doing there, and where are the opportunities in your mind?
Well, you mentioned the Golf Scramble. So the Golf Scramble now supports an advocacy fund. So a few years ago, the board of directors approved establishing and seeding a legislative fund on behalf of the industry itself. So we submit letters to legislators if we see that something is coming out that may be detrimental to corporate housing, or even if it's more generally addressing short-term rentals. At times they don't know what corporate housing might be. They're trying to address short-term rental industry or some challenges or issues that may be coming up that has nothing to do with our industry, but is in the hospitality space. And we're usually tangentially swept up in it because the regulation or ordinance is so widely or ambiguously worded that it could apply to the industry. So differentiating the industry and the certification, as Matt mentioned, that's a big differentiator. Mentioning that the industry has been around for decades and we haven't had these issues. The industry has long since been governed by regulations that are already in place, such as landlord-tenant law. They adhere to fair housing. All of these things are what we seek to educate and advocate on behalf of the industry. If there is an actual piece of legislation that's introduced in a particular market, and most of the issues that we've seen to date have been in local markets, we've gone as far as pulling together members and expertise and a guiding group of members that are impacted in a particular market, hiring public relations teams or hiring a lobbying firm to help us articulate and make the connections with legislators that are introducing such legislation so that we can, again, explain what we are. So hopefully whatever is being introduced minimally impacts the industry, if at all. So that's really
this is really super interesting. And it seems like the challenges seem to be kind of highly localized with different municipalities that take kind of these hardline stances, and they're trying to it seems like they're trying to cure this other thing over here, but then of course corporate housing is kind of swept into it,
Exactly.
We talk about accreditation, but is it something that licensing would go so far? I mean, is that a bridge too far, or is that what's needed in order for the government to say this is a corporate housing provider, this is not, they can do it, they can't? I mean, how is regulation on the table? Is that a good step, or is it probably not a good step, or do we know yet?
You know what? I wish there was an easy answer to that question. I'm looking at the
Right.
question Richard just posed too. Can we make an accreditation globally standard? And I think there are some, I know in the UK, there are some government, mandates. I don't think I'm using the right terminology, but there is something that is governmentally, maybe that's what I'm looking for. But it's mandated.
They're governmental.
It's not necessarily
Oh.
the case everywhere here. You mentioned that it's likely local. It's more commonly localized, and that's what we're seeing right now. So the good news is there's not national legislation, or at least federal legislation, being introduced in the States or in Canada. The bad news is there's not registered legislation being introduced at that one level, so you can address it at one time. So we're still addressing on a case-by-case basis, and we ask for members' help to be able to identify if there's something that's coming up in your market that you're hearing even rumblings about. If you can let us know, because it is far easier to educate and advocate for the industry before regulation is put into place than it is behind the scenes. So once it's already passed. So we can get some information out there and help. And we've got white papers, we've got statistics, we've got data that we can share with local municipalities and lawmakers that explain the differences between short-term rental accommodations and just how corporate housing is not necessarily short-term. It could be used for that, but we're different, and just explaining that and articulating that. So the sooner we get ahead of it, the larger the impact we can make.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I come from kind of a moving industry background, and they've gone through regulation and deregulation. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like the industry was healthier, in my opinion, this is my opinion purely, healthier under regulation than deregulation. Deregulation opened the door to a lot of pretend movers to kind of come in and act like movers, but not provide the same level of consumer protections or have the same, insurances or the same type of, just operate the same way. And so it's interesting because, business tends to be anti-regulation, right? But sometimes we actually find that regulations actually help the kind of incumbent professional operators. So anyway, a big sticky wicket I'm sure that we could probably discuss at the CHPA conference coming up in February. But I want to have a little bit of fun. Look at this. We got people. Oh, you know what? I was trying to get off of it, Matt. I was trying to let her off the hook, Matt. And now you're bringing it back. He says, Matt West says regulation through the local municipalities has been on the rise lately, and unfortunately there is no difference in the government's eyes between Airbnb, corporate housing, STRs overall. I know I will be a part of fighting that with Marianne and encourage others to join the fight.
Matt is a great champion. He has expressed interest in helping drive it for the industry and certainly for the association. So thanks, Matt. And he's true, and he's right. And that's the challenge we keep bumping up against, is that we all fall into this bucket, if you will, from a legislative perspective. I shouldn't say from a legislator perspective, because they don't understand the differences, which is why we take, trying to take the educational point and pushing that as soon as we can. And unfortunately, there's some reputational repair that's out there that needs to be done for some companies that struggled through the pandemic. The other side of that is the language we're using to differentiate the industry. Some, I think, let's see, how did he, I don't know if that referenced that, but there are others that are now using the same lingo, corporate housing speak, if you will. And simply because you're using the same language doesn't mean you're actually a professional corporate housing provider company. And so we're working to pull together even a session for GBTA talking about, you can call it corporate housing, but that doesn't mean that's what it is, and describing and differentiating what we really are.
Yeah, well, I mean, and unless the government or someone, well, I guess the government defines what it is and what it isn't, it doesn't preclude anyone from calling themselves that and just buying Google search terms and trying to play the SEO game. Really interesting. This is an onion we could peel back until we cry. Let's have some fun, though, Marianne. Okay? Right. We got CHPA conference coming up in New Orleans, February 20th through the 22nd. I'm going to be there. I'm fun. You're fun. Let's have some fun together. Adam, super producer Adam, we got time for a little bit of overrated, underrated? He's giving me the thumbs up. We are locked and loaded. And now, Marianne, do you know how to play overrated, underrated? Marianne, are you familiar with the concept?
No.
It's super hard. There's two answers possible.
Overrated or underrated?
You're fast. I'm going to give you a topic, and you are going to tell me if it's overrated or underrated, and I am going to tell you if you are right.
Oh, okay. Isn't this subjective?
Super, except it's my show, so I get to do it.
All right. Okay.
Adam, first topic. Kindness and tolerance. What say you? Overrated or underrated?
I say it's underrated. You want to know why?
Yes, please.
I mean, the importance of it can't be overrated, but I think it's undervalued. Let's put it that way. Undervalued in today's society. I think people see it as weakness when it's just really kindness and tolerance. You're talking about inclusivity and just being more open and welcoming to the differences in all of us. I don't think if you're putting that out there, I don't think that's bad. I don't think anything.
No, yeah, I love it. I love it. And this was a little bit of a softball to start your five overrated, underrateds here. But let me ask you, I'm gonna challenge you here for a second. How do you exercise kindness and not have it taken or mistaken for weakness?
That's a good question. I really like to do things to surprise, especially friends and the people I love. So for example, I've got a friend who is celebrating a milestone birthday today. And so she said, okay, we can go out for drinks, like no dinner, like she doesn't want to make a big deal about it. Well, I didn't listen. So, okay, I reached out to her family and friends and her kids. And I said, I want to give her at least one reason for every year she's been alive for why she's special. And so put that together in a book and printed it. And we're going to show that. And her kids are going to FaceTime when we're all at a bar. And I invited far more people than she think are coming. And that's what we're going to do tonight.
So apparently she does not watch the show.
No, she's not.
Your friend is not a fan. She's not a fan of the show. That is really sweet, though. That is really that's gonna be so meaningful to your friend. You are a good person, Marianne.
Thank you. I try.
I wish you came to my birthday.
When is it? I'll come.
It was November 13th. I turned 40. Oh. It's just make me a book.
You're a baby.
Send it to me. Love it. Oh, this is great. Speaking of, look at that. Elizabeth says she's going to be there in New York on the 18th. Super awesome. All right, next topic, Adam. Doing nothing. Overrated or underrated?
It is underrated. I mean, that is a lesson that I took from the pandemic. And I wish I would have done nothing more. But I was scrambling like a lunatic in the beginning as we were, trying to help member companies. They had inventory that was empty and standing empty, and we were working with the American Hospital Association and trying to get frontline workers and medical staff into the inventory from corporate housing companies. So things like that. It's just doing nothing though to recharge. I am learning to appreciate that more and more.
How do you turn it off, though? I got to believe that you have a million people that want your time or want your ear or your opinion on something. How do you turn it off?
I don't really well. That's my resolution for this year. I really don't turn it off very well. And also I keep trying to learn how to meditate, and my team doesn't believe I can sit still long enough to make that happen. So that's my ongoing challenge. Well,
then let's keep it moving. Number 3. Italian restaurants, overrated or underrated? What say you, Marianne Passi? Overrated.
I'm sorry, not all Italian restaurants, but okay. So full disclosure, first generation Italian American. Both my parents are from 2 different places in Italy, but if you walk in, I just ask you, please, I beg you, if you walk in, you see the Rat Pack as a picture on the wall. It's usually a good discernment of don't eat there. I'm sorry, it's an own personal bias, but just because they have pasta doesn't make it good. So anyway, I'm sorry. That's my.
So are you talking about these places like you go in? There's like a mural of Tuscany on the wall. Is that what you're talking? Yeah.
That could be iffy. Yeah.
What about music? If you hear a little Frank Sinatra, is that a bad sign or a good sign?
I don't think it's. Yeah, I don't
Dino?
want that to be really authentic. So that's just me.
Little moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie. A little bit of that. That's amore.
No. So
all right, number 4. You're right. I'll dig it. Number 4, social media identity.
Overrated. This comes from
Overrated.
having kids, but
You're breaking my heart.
identifying yourself via social media, I think, is overrated. It sounds terrible as I'm actually, or
It's the only place I'm important, Marianne. I go home and I'm nobody,
It
okay?
is important, but if that, no, I just mean personally identifying with that. I think it's just done a lot more harm than good. And that's probably talking as a parent and as a female.
Yeah. No, it is hard, especially with, with imagery and, you're talking about having kids, and things like body image and,
Yeah, absolutely. The bullying and just the feeling bad about yourself.
and the consumerism, right? And things like that. Totally. That's why I love LinkedIn, right? Because you're not seeing scantily clad people. You're not seeing ostentatious, well, they're trying to have a constructive conversation that makes people better.
Yes.
And that's what I like about LinkedIn versus some of the other ones.
Agree.
Oh, this is great. Look at this. Elizabeth saying you need to go to Arthur Avenue in New York City. You ever been to Arthur Avenue, Little Italy kind of area?
No.
Now, Arthur Avenue, isn't that in the Bronx? I think it's in the Bronx. Isn't it in the Bronx, Elizabeth? I think it might be in the Bronx, the Boogie Down. Look at this. Arthur Avenue is the best. Look at it. We're coming around.
Everyone's jumping in.
Yeah. Tyler's parents have a poster of the rat in their kitchen. Taken out of context. That's great. Let's see. Do we have another one? Last one here. Power of connection.
Going back to I'm going to say underrated. It is really important to connect with people. If it's this way, if it's in person, if it's in the chat. But that's why I'm so happy that business travel is back. Our conference is back. People can get back together and just create these relationships one-on-one and in a group. So power of connection cannot be underrated. It cannot be overrated enough. I mean, we all want to connect with each other. You talked about being concerned about your employees' lives when you weren't before, but more empathetic now. And it's the connection you're looking for. I mean, they're looking to connect with their companies, looking to connect with each other, and keeping the connection with their families alive. Yeah.
Yeah. We got to get out of the house, people. We have to get out of the house. I mean, I know we work from home and we game from home and we shop from home and we entertainment's at home. We gotta get out of the house. We gotta meet people. I was talking to somebody the other day, and he's like, my family, we get together and we have big family gatherings and we always have for decades. And that's just kind of our family style. He's like, and if people have an issue with themselves, with other people, with work, they air it out at these things, but we don't get together the way we used to get together,
right.
And I can't help but think that, some of the challenges that we have with mental illness and some of the things that are happening, we got to connect. We're animals. We're animals, and we gotta get close to one another. We have to have proximity, and just shaking hands, hugging, handshakes, hugs, high fives, laughter. I mean, it's been proven to be good for people's health and longevity. So with that, I hope I see everybody at CHPA in New Orleans. I cannot wait to hug everybody, have a hurricane, have a laugh, come up with some new partnerships, develop some business, make some money together, and just continue to kind of grow the network, the community, the work family that I have. So that's what I'm most looking forward to. Marianne, what are you most looking forward to?
Same. I'm looking forward to seeing people I haven't seen in a few years, and some that I saw last year, but last year was still kind of a weird time.
It was still kind of a weird time, right? So this is because it was early in the year, right? So it wasn't later, it was an early.
It was January last year. So people were concerned about the variant at that time. So a lot of people then couldn't come or still had company mandates that restricted travel. So really looking forward to seeing everyone in New Orleans and just having a great time, learning from each other. And as you just mentioned, connecting. So thanks for having me. And I look forward to seeing everyone next month at CHPA.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I can't wait to see you all there. Thanks everybody for being here on Love and Reload today with us. Without you, we wouldn't have a show. Thanks for getting in the comments. Hit that like button one last time. Send a little love out to Marianne. Marianne Passi, CEO of the CHPA. We will see y'all at the conference in New Orleans. Take care.